That next day was like 60 degrees. It was like, but it was like nice. And so far it's stayed level right now. Now it's like, summer weather, but not like crazy.
No, it is. It's a nice, beautiful morning. Looks like it might even be cool, which is a lie. We know it's a lie.
It's all a lie. It's all a ruse. But yeah, it was cool this morning.
Outside and fry you.
This morning was not bad. And then now it's already starting to pick up, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, let's talk about coffee and cappuccino. So this is funny thing. So my parents loved cappuccinos, and so my dad got a cappuccino machine, and we were always the envy of like every family who came over, because this is in Australia, and then not just in Australia, we were in Perth, which is in Western Australia. So if you were to imagine, I think it's basically the continent of the United States, that size, and you cut it in half. Half of it is one state because it's like empty and it's just basically desert. There's a thin line of green around the edge. That's where everybody lives. Yeah. And then in the loneliest capital city in the world, known as Perth, because it's 6 hours flight, I think, to anywhere else. That's where we lived. So I'm from the back ends of nowhere. Perthians, I love you guys. So we used to have a cappuccino machine, which was a very deluxe kind of thing when everybody would come over.
Yeah, and so nice.
We would just... It would be kind of a big deal, like to make you a cappuccino, and it's frothing the milk, and then there's the grinding of the beans and the pressing it in. It was like this beautiful sort of ritual, and then you come out and you sort of clinking on little, saucer, and you give it to people, and they were like, "Whoa!" They see the cinnamon dust on top. Did I say that? And then they enjoy it, and it's like, it was beautiful, and it was the good quality stuff. My dad he's traveled all over the world. English is his third language because he started in Brazil, went to Canada, then to South Africa, and then New Zealand, and traveled around Italy. And so I think he had his palate cultured by good coffee, and the group of people that sort of raised him once he left high school, that he went on mission with. They're like very elite cultural standards, So I imbibed some of that. Well, the cool thing was, as kids, we were trained in how to make coffees as well, because you're raising 8 kids and you got
someone's got to know how to make it. Yeah.
So we were like 9. Hold on, I wasn't 9 because it's Australia. So yeah, there's a bunch of us basically boys in our early teens, and we're all being trained to be like these
baristas.
I don't know if I can keep it going, but we're baristas. Your job is to like be making coffee in the morning, maybe at night. Guests come over, and like, man, it was a point of pride to get in there, because here's the nice thing: if you make the coffee for the guest, whoever the guest is, the plumber, the guy who comes over to teach you keyboard typing, like you get to have a coffee if you make him one.
That's pretty good. Because it's a sweet deal.
Sweet deal. And then everybody else, all the other kids standing around, can suck it.
Get out of the kitchen. Yes, chef.
Yeah. So all of that to say, I put cinnamon in my coffee over the weekend, and it just brought back a flood of memories of standing there with that squealing, flushing, trying to
the froth or whatever,
figure out the right angle of the frother, and then wiping it down and trying to get it to work, and it not working, and superheating the milk and blowing it up in your face. Too much cinnamon. And I remember my dad would do. My mom at one point took a trip to America. She flew back to visit with family. She took a couple of really young ones. And so the rest of us stayed home with my dad, and he would do like Bible readings in the morning. I remember we read through the epistles of St. Paul. I don't remember anything about the epistles of St. Paul. All I remember was that he made us cappuccinos. All of us 3 boys got cappuccinos. We sat there, and I would just dream and wish I could lie back, and it would just magically tip and then just refill, and then carefully lick every single edge.
Dom, you paying attention? What?
Yeah. That's that. Then it's like you ask a question, you like scrub through short-term memory like really quickly, like Inside Out.
Yeah.
They're all like off lounging. It's like, what did he just say? I don't know. Scrub. Look, data. He said this.
Anything.
And then forget again.
Yeah. That made me think of it. I was only a semi barista. I worked at a chocolate shop, and they did cappuccinos and they did gelatos just for a little bit. Yeah. But when I first did, I was so bad at making cappuccinos. Every time I just like burn the milk. So it's just like this like floating curdled thing on top. I was like, here you go. One lady goes, could you please try again? And I was like, oh geez. I just never, but after the second half I got it right. But man, that's a treat. I haven't put cinnamon in my coffee. I haven't put really much in my coffee at all. Lately just doing it black. A little cinnamon would be nice. But today I woke up with I was just like, I don't know why. I think I ate too late last night. Really? I had like cheese and sausage at like 9:30. just like slamming my face. So like all night I'm like, and I woke up.
I've got a slight working theory, and I think it's because I read it from somewhere. If you go to bed like slightly hungry, you have better dreams as opposed to going to bed full, and then your body has like a whole ton of work to do all night long.
Forget it. That's what it was.
Able to rest.
That's what I was doing. I was just up, like I was like doze off and like up, and then like I was so full and kind of like agitated. And then I woke up at one point. I had a dream. I had flickers of dreams, and the one dream was like I had like bug bites or something, and I was itching my arms. In real life, I was itching my arms. I woke up itching, and then I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, I had all those bug bites I have. Woke up this morning, I don't have any bug bites on me. It was just like, so like, well, lesson learned. Like, one, I could have just done it a little easier. Like I just slammed. It was such a good
sausage next time.
It was so good though. I was just like, I kept going. I'm like, all right, chill, Gabe. Next time.
Yeah, next time. Man, it's weird. Like I had a dream of Jack Sparrow last night, and we were drowning and trying to get onto a boat, and it was never dreamed of him before, ever. Like,
isn't that funny when there's like a recall of a dream? Like I haven't thought of that thing or person in so long. I wonder what your mind is. Why did that like draw it up? Like there's some, right? Is it something like during the day that you like make these little flickers of information
all of that
in your mind? Just goes like, let's put it all together. And here's Jack Sparrow. Now you're drowning together.
I was reading a line yesterday. It was on Substack, and some person was taking a course in some school in dream study, dream understanding. I was, that looks interesting. I'll give that a look at. And he talked about Jung and his emphasis on paying attention to dream and dream symbolism and whatever. And but there's this one little line that struck me as interesting. Was my takeaway was sometimes what's happening in your subconscious and your dreaming life can almost be running parallel to what's happening in your real life. It's not always that. It's just a mirror, a filtering of what you're not paying attention to in your waking life. It's doing its own thing, and it's having its own conversations, and it's trying to work through things, and sometimes they overlap and connect. Yeah. And it's like, okay, maybe I'm secretly doing stuff with Jack Sparrow. I don't know. Maybe he means more to me than I realize.
Well, I'll tell you what. If he means something to me, I remember when I was. That was weird.
Let's go there.
When I was like, when did the first Pirates of the Caribbean come out? I don't know, but whenever that came out, I don't know why in my mind I was like thinking of like who I want to.
Thousands,
right?
Like
that makes sense. Like
2010s or something. I have no idea.
Probably mid 2000s. It would probably make sense. I could look. We could fact check it. But anyways, the point is, I was trying to figure like who I want to be when I grow up, and I've always thought about when I was little. I was like thinking like, I thought I want to have a beard. I want to do this thing, and I was like, let me make a cool list of all the people I think are the coolest. And at the top of the list was Johnny Depp or Jack Sparrow.
Oh, really?
And then here's another, here's an Australianite, if that's an Aussie. Then I had Keith Urban, the country singer. And gosh, those are the top two. I remember it was like my coolest, and I kept that on my bed. I'm like, every time I found somebody else, I'm like, that's my coolest. Oh, and I had Mark McGuire. He was a baseball player, and he at one point had the most home runs. It's just funny. I don't know. As a kid, you think of like who you want to be when you grow up. And I remember the few things I thought of. I was like, I want to have a beard. And I want to have a tattoo. And I was like, yeah, there we go. So far, so good.
Well, that's cool.
Well, because Jack Sparrow was cool. You should make it now.
Yeah, when I grow up.
Yeah, when you grow up.
You in baseball, huh? I didn't know that was a big thing for you.
It wasn't. It was for me, really. It was my older brother was really into baseball all growing up. My grandpa was an avid Yankees fan. And so like I was always around it. I never liked playing it. I remember because T-ball, I played it and I was in the outfield. And if you ever played T-ball in the outfield, you're like, doing nothing. You're picking daisies. You're just, there's no balls are getting that far. Mm-hmm. But I always liked like Derek Jeter when he was around. I was like, he's cool. Like, it's just like, I don't know. There's something about like that level of like attention and what they do with it. And I feel like baseball players in my mind, then were just like these stoic, always, top notch, didn't do anything bad. Like just stood their ground, like almost like heroes. And I remember when Mark McGuire, he was like this, this big jacked guy, like he hit the home, most home runs. It's just like, that is cool. Like he had a goatee and it's just like, I don't know, this, where you picture like a man to be like, and even like, remember my G.I. Joes, my favorite G.I. Joe was Shipwreck. Remember that toy I bought? He had a goatee too. I don't know. So all these like, bloop, 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 all these assimilations, but baseball itself is just like, it's a family thing. Everybody lives in the family. And I think these guys are just like, athletes are just cool. I don't know why, but.
So you said back then, I take it either don't follow baseball anymore or they're not as heroic anymore.
No, well, it's quite the contrary. I follow baseball a lot now, but back then I wasn't interested in the sport. I was just interested in the person or the persona of being this hero. Now, really love baseball. I could see them more now as adults just doing really well in their craft, but they're not like, it's not as much of like a hero, but still really like it. But yeah, back then it was just, I didn't think of the sport. I just thought of I like Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter. Again, didn't follow basketball at all. Never watched a game. Loved Michael Jordan. Loved Derek Jeter. And then when I heard about Cristiano Ronaldo and David Beckham, these soccer players, again, never watched the sport ever, but just enamored by them. Did you ever was there any sports attraction for you in any way, shape, or form?
No, we never had that. Growing up, my dad was never interested in sports. He was more of the academic with the middle tire wannabe. Yeah. So we never got into sports. I mean, we liked martial arts, but we never really watched anything. I remember watching the Olympics one year was like a big deal because this is a thing.
Were you not?
No, I don't really.
Were you in Australia when there was the Olympics in Sydney?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what year that was.
I don't know what that year was.
So who's the name in baseball I should know, as if I know anything, if somebody ever asks me?
What is the name? Well, you should know. Yeah. You should know who Derek Jeter is, just because that's my favorite.
Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter.
Do you collect baseball cards for?
I do. Yeah. Speaking of which, yeah. So I have, and
Babe Ruth within arm's reach.
Yeah, Babe Ruth. You know who that is?
I know the name. Okay, I know that he's a big deal.
Here's Derek Jeter's rookie card that I have. Yeah. It's a nice special thing. So that's a good one. Yeah, but I mean, there's
a pitcher. He's a good pitcher. Is that what it is?
No, he was a shortstop for the Yankees.
And a shortstop catches the ball behind the batter.
He's behind the pitcher, like between second and third. So he was it's a very crucial position. And then he became the captain, and being a captain of the Yankees were a team that it's just a very prestigious team. They've won the most World Series. They're, just very, very clean cut. Well, now they could have beards, but they're very by the rule, set in their ways, and they have a certain appearance they want to present themselves as. And then they had what was called the dynasty era, where they won back-to-back world championships, and Derek Jeter was one of the key players. But I mean, there's a ton of baseball players to know, but Derek Jeter's up one. Babe Ruth is, again, another Yankee, but just an all-time hero for everybody. I mean, is there anybody, if you were to say sports for you, is there any sports figure for you that would stand out that you even know about? They're so big that even you know?
That's an entire part of the human family that I know nothing about. And I know that people go nuts about it, and there are wars being fought, and there's politics and dynamics and all of this stuff. And I just know nothing about it.
I feel like whenever I always use a sense when I thought a player was good, if I heard about them or knew of them, I consider them to be good. In tennis, Venus and Serena Williams. I don't ever watch tennis, but I know who they are. And so that was they stand out. Or basketball, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, all these people that just randomly stand out in their fields. I think I always find interest in that, even if it's not sports. I don't know. I'm trying to think of another example of just somebody that just stands out in a field because they're so good. Probably be authors or singers, but yeah. I do like the Olympics. 2000. So were you in Sydney in 2000 or Australia?
I think we had probably just moved there.
Oh, that's cool.
I remember because I've got this locked in my brain. We were in computer class. It must have been end of 99 or 2000. And I remember Bernard Goy was a Filipino kid, and I think he was Filipino. And he went around and he was slamming on everybody's keyboards. It's the year 2000. He went over to the next keyboard. It's the year. And he was interrupting everybody. And so I was like, okay, I know I was in Australia then. That's the only way.
What was his name? What was his name? Thanks, Bernard.
Yeah, there you go.
Shout out to Bernard.
So I never told you, actually. We slept in a grade school classroom when we moved to Australia.
What?
Okay, so we left New Zealand.
So wait, where were you born? You were born in New Zealand?
Born New Zealand. Okay. So there's New Zealand has two islands.
Yeah. Yep.
North Island, South Island, I think. I was 9 when we left, so I don't remember a lot. And 7 of us kids were born all over the different islands because my dad moved around a lot. little that I can remember is that they were all based either deal hunting or a parish priest would say, hey, you can come live in our basement over here for a bit. And so they were trying to cut costs everywhere. Or like, here's some sort of house you can come stay in. So they're always trying to cut costs or something. So I think my dad was looking for work in Fiji, and he was trying to get connected with the church hierarchy there. And so we spent I think it was about 3 months or 2 months in Fiji. It must have been a little bit longer because we actually started going to school while we were there. And so we would get on the bus and go down to the local school, and we got uniforms. And so I think my parents were kind of intending to stay there. And they're sort of getting a feel for it. And we were renting from this, like, I just remember this massive, big, open plan sort of living house. And then out the back was a hole in the fence, and then tiny Fijian family. And I made friends with them. We all went to school together. And that's where I first watched The Night Before Christmas. And it horrified me. In Fiji. We were like a minute from the beach, and everybody cooking things like just buried in the ground and cover it over, and then cook it. And there's always like smoke going off, and people living in corrugated, shacks and little houses and everything. And it was so different an experience from New Zealand. But then I think it didn't work out, or I'm not exactly sure. And so we ended up moving to Perth, Australia, because he then got a job working in high school. So he was a religion teacher in high school. So we all moved there. Now, the problem was we moved there, but we had absolutely no contacts. We'd never been there. We had no ability to rent a home or anything. And so this school, I think, was just starting, or it was under new management or something. And so they moved all the desks out of the grade 1 classroom, stacked them all against the walls. And they had all the, paintings all over the walls of like kids in grade 1 doing like flower, sparkle, glitter stuff, all over the wall, and alphabets and big blackboards. And they just wheeled in a bunch of beds like it was a medical emergency wing. And they just put a bunch of beds and put some sheets up. And we slept in there for the summer holidays. And that we actually had Christmas in that classroom.
Really?
And
oh wow,
we kids just went feral around that entire school area. Because if you imagine something probably the shape of like the letter H, something like that. That was kind of the shape of the school. And so we're in like the end of one wing, and right below us actually was the library. And I loved that place. It was a tiny little library. It was my first memory ever of going to a library. But there was a massive veranda. We used to find slats of wood and smash them into each other. And we even found trolleys. I think you call them up here. Push carts.
Sure. Yep. Shopping carts.
Thank you. And we would sit inside it and let go of the kid. They would woo down the veranda ramp. So stupidly dangerous. We were those kids, like, you look at them and you're like, I don't know how you guys survived, and how my parents let us get away with anything. They had no idea what we got up to. There's areas behind the school that are out of bounds. There was a massive field behind. I remember I was so bad that was the year I was so bad I'd never got gifts. They deferred the gifts all the way to Epiphany.
Wow.
And everybody else got to play with stuff, and I don't even remember what I got anymore. But that was like, whoa, stuff gets real.
Wow, that's it. That's crazy. You actually got to see that side of like no gifts. Wow. So like, is like birthdays or just Christmas or just everything?
Oh, it was just Christmas.
Just.
I don't remember what I did. It was hold on here, because 3 weeks after is my birthday, and I remember getting something then.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. But wow, that's serious. I wonder what you did.
No idea anymore.
It's all buried.
It's all
like my dad's. It was funny. I don't know. I was saying this made me think of my dad. We were asking my dad about like when he was younger and this and that. I'm like, Dad, do you have a dog, or do you ever have any pets? He's like, yeah, we had a dog, I think. And then we're like, what? We never knew you had a dog. Like just something, a random fact you think you know. I was like, what was his name? And he was like, oh, I don't know. And then we're like, well, what happened to him? He's like, oh, we had him for like a year, 2, 3. I'm like, Dad, there's such loose information. Like, where is this? Like, what happened to the dog? Like, is it a family dog? He's like, no, it's my dog. And we kept prying. And we're like, Dad, what is with this dog? He's like, I don't know. It's probably something. If you keep prying, I'm going to cry about it. So I was like, we all started cracking up though. He's like, I don't know. He's like, probably something that was like traumatic. I just buried it. But like, it's just one of those things
we ever had was, I think I left the gate open and it ran away. And I think we called it Tiki or something.
Tiki.
That was, I must have been 6 or 7. And Tiki gone is what apparently I said. And we didn't get a dog for a minute after that.
I bet they're like, well, geez, we had that one for a weekend. Tiki gone.
It must have been tiny. I don't even know. I remember we had a German Shepherd puppy named Pepper, and it was a powerhouse little thing. It broke my mom's finger and she wore a cast.
Oh my gosh.
Because it kept lunging at everything. She wanted something to be a protective dog. She grew up with big German Shepherds. She always loved them. And I remember Barney. Barney is some sort of big blonde. I don't think it was a retriever. It was the last dog we had before we left New Zealand.
That sounds like a fun dog, Barney.
Yeah.
He sounds
I had
floppy
a yellow
and
bike.
goofy.
I remember that. I used to annoy everybody with it.
Did you ever put a card in the spokes to make it sound like...
Only when we were older.
Yeah.
No. What we did when we were older, so like I said, we were feral. We grew up watching movies like El Cid. I don't know if you ever saw that from the old days. It's got big jousting scenes in it where two knights run at each other with, spears.
Oh boy.
So what we would do is like quietly detach the broom handles, and then we would get on bikes and like drive at each other and stab each other, knock each other off. Or we would do something called, bike wars, where you would take long sticks or branches and shove it in each other's spokes to flip each other, knock each other off, and race around on like 2 or 3 bikes. And so us boys were just mean, and we're good at it.
It's funny when you think about we were just talking about this the other day, I thought about it the other day. When we were younger, we had like a little neighborhood that was Circle. It was literally called, the street was something Circle. And so, but there's a bunch of little families of kids that were all the same age. And I don't know how it started, but we gathered as all the boys, gathered of all ages, and we arranged a thing called Pop Till You Drop. And what it was is everybody, and it was at night, summer night, and everybody would come to our front yard or backyard. And I don't know why our house was the designated spot, and I don't know who started it. The idea is you would do either 2, like head to head, or 4 kids in a corner, and you'd say go, and everyone just charge at each other and try and like knock each other off. And if you fell to the ground on your back, you were out. Pop till you drop. I don't know why that made sense, but it made sense. And we just these brawls in the front yard. It's just funny, like this thing, like, and I don't even know if my parents knew about it. Maybe they did, but I think it was always after hours, And it's just funny, these things that we would do. And we played neighborhood manhunt, where we had 2 walkie-talkies. I don't know how the game would work, but we had 2 walkie-talkies, and the playground was the entire neighborhood. You could hide anywhere, any neighbor's house. The juiciest part was if you can hide in someone that doesn't know you, in their yard. But imagine this rabble-rousal, group of kids playing Pop Till You Drop in the front yard, just knock each other off. And we try and rank match. So age match. So it wasn't my younger brother who was 6 against a 13-year-old. We tried to rank it, but gosh, yeah. That was the only kind of feral thing we would do, other than climb trees and build stuff in the woods. But man, you need a little bit of that. I think that's good to do that.
I think it was. I mean, I cannot imagine ever parenting my kids the same way, but
I know, right?
Glad that it happened to me. That I got to have it. And so I don't know how to square that.
I think about that too. Because I'm well, I want to we have a creek, and but I mean, I guess at a certain age, right now our kids are still the older 2, I could see just going off playing by the creek. But I wouldn't send our 4-year-old out or 3-year-old.
And also for me, I think it's different with young boys, because I only have a girl. Whereas there were, how many boys? There were 2 boys, and there was a girl, and there were 2 more boys. And so we were a tight-knit clutch of rabble-rousers, hell-raisers. And she kind of wanted to, but had a little extra, She was a tomboy for a minute, and then didn't stick for as long.
Yeah.
It's very different. It's like that movie, is it Tree of Life, I think, by Terrence Malick? And it was such a throwback watching that movie and seeing the boys run around and go at each other and run around through the neighborhood and
I know
struggle with their dad and whatever.
I do miss that. That's why we were just talking a neighborhood feel. We're right now where we live, we're not in we can't see the neighbors. You look out any which way, you can't see anybody, which is its own niceness. But at the same time, I do miss that feel of just being in the neighborhood, going out, just check on the neighbor, say hi and get the kid outside. But so it is different. That's another reason why we don't just kind of let them go. It's just a main road and then wilderness. So it's what are you gonna do? But
I mean, there's UFO abductions, but hey, statistically far away from everything.
But yeah, the odds of that, we'll take our chances with that one if it happens. But
Bigfoot. So I think you said you had a list of some other stuff that we could talk about, and so let's hit that before anything else comes up.
Yeah, well, just a quick kind of tie-in of the weekend. Been playing a lot of Magic and having fun with that. But the thought was I've been getting to I'm watching this guy on YouTube. He's making his own TCG, his own trading card game.
Ooh, okay.
I just love the concept and the theory of like making a game. So it's not even just like the collectible aspect, like making cards that look cool. Like he's an artist, so he started with the artist part, just like making cool cards. But then like the game dynamics of playing it. And we've talked about this before, like kind of game theory in different applications. And I don't know why I use chat. I think I sent it to you. I was like, chat, like explain, like I did it for a couple things. I was like, explain like God's goodness through a trading card game. Like how does that like God's goodness and prayer and interaction with him? So this weekend we were just doing a bunch of that kind of stuff, like having conversations about it and like just the different mechanics of like a game that you have to think through. And like, especially for a kid, like we were our 7-year-old, I'm playing with my 7-year-old, and he's just like, math is coming like really like intricately, like, cause you have to like strategize and like how these things level up, these things defend, these attack. And I don't know, it's been really good, but I think the thought I was going to talk to you about is like also just that application is so beneficial for like explaining life. We've talked about like game theory. We, Dr. K, like how he uses game theory for so many different things. And I was really chewing on that this past weekend, but we were saying like how when you think of life in game terms, sometimes things just click easier.
Yeah.
And man, I think that's, just the idea of like that in a game, like, you have a set deck of cards, any game really. And you think of like your life is these set deck of cards, right? Picture it's a set deck of cards. You don't know how many cards are in it because it's life and you don't know how many cards you get, but you just keep playing. And like the thought that like, if you had the thought that you were going to win no matter what, then you wouldn't matter what comes, right? It's like, that's what I've been thinking about a lot lately is like, even if you have like a really terrible draw of the cards, if you know you're going to win, that card loses its sting a little, right? It only has a big bite when you don't know it's going to turn around. You're like, oh shoot, is this going to like end it all? I don't know. So I've been having a lot of fun with that lately, just like mentally chewing on that of that. What if it all works out and just keep going? Then the things, life still has moments that suck, but they suck a little less and they hurt a little less. I don't know. So yeah, I'm still chewing on that, but that was a weekend other than playing around, having fun with family and stuff, but like thinking about game theory a lot and thinking about trading cards and just why they're so appealing. But
agreed. That's so cool. I am very interested to I haven't never talked this out loud yet. I'm still trying to think of the way around it. But this same sense of, okay, what's the core idea here I'm trying to get at? I think that games just work for us as people. We love them because they can be an like sneak peek of the mechanics of how things work. Yeah. And there are some games where like, this is, games where like, chance games or dice games or games where it's about luck and using a die, right? And I think that is a valuable kind of game because it's all about luck management. How do you handle random stuff happening to you? There are some people who have lots of randomly good stuff happening to them, but they're blind, clueless, pointless, disoriented, and so they don't make any good use of the random options that show up for them. And then there are others who have like bad things sort of happen for them, but maybe they network them together and then they can create something good out of them. So there's a lot of games that I think are about luck management, but then there's other games, and this sort of goes more into a bit more of a philosophy thing a bit, but there are some games that are very deeply story-based. Yeah. And then it's through the experiencing, the playing through, the feeling through of that story, it teaches you or helps you to see other things about your life. But like the mere sort of game mechanic of having like a deck of cards, like you said, it goes, this is the direction of your game life. And when this is it, you're done. What kind of game do you play? Like what a great
it's so fun
working metaphor for how to maybe think about and handle life.
Well, I think that the other element to it, like a deck building game, any type of deck building game, is also like you get to search for all these different cards to build your deck, right? So it's like life, like even though the game itself has an element of randomness, you build in things like you level up, like you work on skills of like your trade, or you work on like public speaking. So you work on these things and you gather cards that like you're working towards and you're building. And then once gameplay is in action, like, okay, let's see how these things I've put together come into play. And like, that's the fun thing. Like when you're playing a game like that, if you have a weak deck, let's say like, I'm in class and I'm public speaking. I don't know why that comes to mind. And I have not trained with it. So I have no cards in my deck that are strong in that area. Well, when it comes time to enact that play, I'm going to be very weak in it. So the next time I build my deck, if I get stronger cards, well, when that comes into play, it's much stronger. And though like life can still throw curveballs, let's say I prepare for a 50 person audience, and I'm really good with that. Life throws a curveball, and now I have to speak in front of 2,000 people. Well, I haven't prepared for that. I know the mechanics of a 50-person audience, but like that is a bit bigger. So like there is still randomness of life, and that's just one. I don't know why I went down that channel, but the application I think is still the same. That I love that like you can in life think of it as like you're just building a stronger deck. And if you have in a religious sense too, you're doing a tandem deck building, right? You're building this deck with a creator who knows all the cards, if you want to will. And so you're kind of building your deck and building it and letting him build it, letting God in essence build your deck. And then when it comes time to play the game, which is always, it's an ongoing game, now your deck is a bit stronger each time. It's a bit stronger. And then you have a reliance, like in some games, it's called like surveil, so you could see the top card. Well, now you have this connection to a God who could see the deck, and you're like, hey, God, is there any chance you could let me see the coming deck? Sometimes in prayer, that happens. Sometimes you get a little bit of a revelation of where you should go, what you should do. So I don't know why. It's really clicking for me, this kind of game mechanic theory with life.
So here's the thing I think that's cool about this is that a game, it's like subcreating, right? So I'm thinking of games, for example, like Skyrim, or games like people who build entire 3D, like No Man's Sky, right?
Oh, yeah.
Entire 3D semi-autonomous universes or game sandboxes that you can get into and play in and not only field test each other, but yourself, and then against the game itself. And I'm just thinking, like 100 years ago, Tolkien came up with this idea of, or clarified the idea of subcreation, the idea that inside ourselves, we can subcreate a world, and then we can people it and fill it and make it consistent. And then we can try to turn this into spells on paper that somebody else can then read, and then it'll come to life inside them. Well, 100 years later, we're now able to pull it up on a glass tile, and then anybody doesn't have to like really work too hard. If they put in the effort, and I suck at this, of learning the game mechanics and the skill trees and what you got to do, you can then get into and play that game. I usually end up halfway through a game and go, oh yeah, there is a skill tree. Level up, level up, level up, and then the game doesn't make any sense anymore because now everything's different and I can't play the character anymore. I was doing that over the weekend. I was playing a game. But where I'm going with this is this. I remember once looking at a murmuration of starlings or something going through the sky, and it's so weird watching single bird, right? And then it locks into a murmuration and it becomes a hive mind that is able to work as a single, it looks like a single perceived unit. And they're functioning together as a single mind. And I'm just thinking, like, you can do that in a game. Right? People sort of create flocks of things moving in a game, but when you go to do it in a game, a designer literally has to create the laws, create the rules for how to hold that thing together, and create the laws for how a thing can go off and be an individual thing, or like a herd of bison, right? Or what is that thing is it in Africa, or is it a herd of buffalo that once every couple of years they all come in and they all walk in an absolutely massive circle and maybe until the weaker ones die and then they move on again or something?
Oh, yeah.
Crazy, cool, weird stuff. Okay, where I'm going with this is if a game designer or a world designer, not just a dreamer, world dreamer, but somebody can actually build something that he can then be hands off and then somebody else can get into and work with. It seems like someone like that has possible insights into like how the world can work, or how creation does work. Recognizing I'm going to create base level, essential level, foundational programs that make no sense to anybody. They're so opaque that they seem like black magic. And then on top of that, I'm going to layer programs and programs and programs. And they're going to talk together and nest together, and they're going to keep building up. And there's going to be foundational rules that hold these things together. And then I'm going to allow these ones to keep firing and working on their own. And as long as everything does what it's supposed to do, it's like building bricks towards the top of the pyramid. And then we can finally switch on some kind of a visual matrix that allows what these things are doing to suddenly become visible to a particular player, right? But if anything doesn't work, then the whole experience is lost. The game breaks down. And so the amount of stuff that happens behind the scenes for them to create that little avatar on screen to be able to have a playable experience. And I'm like, there's a conversation to be had there about somebody who does that sub-creative experience and then turns around and goes and looks at, well, the quantum nature of the cosmos. So looks at how there's laws and habits to things and how we participate in the sort of phase locking of visual perception and, you know, and I don't even know where this goes. It just strikes me as like, we thought we could get to a point where we could go, yeah, everything is dead and it kind of doesn't really matter. And that was like 100 years ago. And then now you discover this almost new, incredible and superhuman ability almost to now create self-generating game sandboxes. And then you begin to realize, what does it mean that I have the power to do something like this? And then the fact that I live in something analogous to this.
Yeah.
The fact that I can do this, what does that tell me about what I live in? Right? No reference to religion at all. Just the sort of mechanics of what I'm able to do. What does it mean?
Well, I feel like
where that goes, but it intrigues me.
I feel like it puts me into play, so to speak. So like understanding like the mechanics of game, I don't know, because I feel like there's times where like life could feel like it's just like, okay, am I even like a part of this? Is just happening? I think there's different mindsets. In one way that could be very comforting, right? It's like life just goes on, whether I wanted to or not, like life keeps going. Like, okay, that's one side of things. But the other side is like, okay, am I like, what do I do then? Like, where's my element of play in this? Is it something that I just watch and visualize? Is it something that I have complete control over and it's all on me? And then everything is like, it's like they go to such extremes. I feel like in my mind, game theory has like put it right in the middle. There's this element of chance and randomness and that life does keep going on, right? The game still goes on no matter how you play it or what you do. But in the same regard, too, you have this element of control, right? There's part of it where you can, and then having that theory, though, now you can like test it out, right? Like, so you compartmentalize, like, okay, like if that's the case, then let me think of my life in that way and kind of like workshop it. And it's like, it gives you a tangible way to, I think for me, it's giving me a tangible way to workshop life and how to play it in that sense. But if I didn't have that sense, I didn't know how to like, how do I, and that's one big like kind of hack is journaling. Or, you know, something so like you kind of like do that separation, like, okay, let me write what the character Gabe has just done today. So now I'm like, I'm visualizing what's happening. I'm seeing what he's doing. And the narrator mind is a step back away from emotion. You visualize, you could see emotion like, wow, Gabe was really upset today. Or Gabe was really, you know, I don't know, sad, whatever. And though I experience it, that narrator mindset or that game theory mindset, it's that enough separation where you can make a strategic move and not be so overwhelmed by it. At least that's what I found. And so you take those concepts, I think you can like help, like you said, build your deck little by little, build your life. And like, and even if like your life is totally chaotic, right? Like you lose a job and the next day this happens, the next day this happens, like things are out of your control. You can separate and be like, okay, this game's getting pretty chaotic. Are the rules still the same? Have the rules changed? That's why another thing I've thought about too. Like I remember one time when our kids were getting older, like you say in this mindset, like, gosh, I want to go to bed at this time. I want to wake up at this time. And like, okay, well, recognizing the rules have changed. When you have a baby or something, that you wake up at 5:30 sometimes. That's how the rules of the game are now that. And then when you have it, you know, an older kid, okay, the rules of the games have changed. Like timeout doesn't work the same. It's like, I like thinking because like know that sometimes the game changes slightly. And if you're playing with the old rules, you're just going to keep messing up and fumbling and fumbling and fumbling. And I even thought about that with like working from home. Like the rules changed. You have to make the schedule now. And I remember thinking like, you obviously, you know, like we were like the first, you know, while it was a bit tricky to get the schedule like working. And then finally, like, when we started talking about game theory, like has the rules changed? I'm like, yeah, it has. And then you think of like another, you know, one more branch off of that. Like I watch a lot of like every once in a while motivational videos, like, you know, David Goggins or like Jocko Willink, or, you know, they're trying to say, like, you know, get up at 4:30 and, you know, do this. And sometimes like that application works for them because, you know, they're retired and they have a format that does that. But I think what the thing you have to do is like take that theory and apply it to the rules you're playing with. And so I'm not good at that. I'm getting better, but I would do that. I'm like, okay, I got to get up at 4:30. Like, well, no, like that's not the game. That's not the rules of the game you're playing. I mean, you can, but you're making your game more difficult then. Like just use that application and get up at 6 o'clock and be dedicated then. Like don't
like there's one game, I can't remember what it is. The rule of the game is basically you get 4 random cards. You have to assemble 4 cards of the same suit, and the first person who can do that wins. And so everybody's like, take one, pass it to the right, and everybody's doing that. So you're basically cycling through the whole deck. I can't remember what it's called. Well, the funny thing is you invariably lose when you early on settle on, I'm building this card, and then you just keep waiting.
Yeah.
Right. And then you see entire decks like pass through your hand because you're holding out, for that one thing, as opposed to being the kind of player that is able to like start with a plan, but then just be able to adapt, because the point of a game is to keep playing, and a winner is the one who adapts, who isn't so defensive about who they think they want to be, but you keep adapting to your situation. So I think a great example is like you're talking about building your playing deck, and like halfway through a game, I imagine, and I don't know yet enough about Magic and stuff, but halfway through a game, you begin to realize I need to change up my strategy because it's not working, or things are getting harder, which means the situation has changed, and I can't keep trying to you can't keep using the same plays when you're not in the same game as it was when you started.
And that actually does happen. That's exactly like what would happen. Like you're playing with a deck and you're like, okay, I have not built up enough defense. Like I'm just so open. And then so like,
and they're exploiting that.
Exactly. And so then like, okay, let's the real world application. Like I have just no defense, right? Like my morning, I just, kind of stumble through. It's like, I've built up no defense. Like I've not gone for a walk. I've not like had a time of prayer, meditation. I haven't done reading. I haven't wrote like the things that whatever your thing is. And so like, you're not building your defense for the day. That's what I was just thinking about this past week. I took that application. I'm like, gosh, like, cause that guy, I think David Goggins, he's like, make it your morning like you're armoring up for the day, or you're building and then now for us, build your deck so you have enough defense. So then when the morning comes and like you have meetings or you have emails, you're like, well, at least like I got my walk in, so I have my mind clear. I read, whatever your thing is, I wrote, like I did my things that I need. So when I hit that first thing in the morning, I'm ready. And now your deck's a little stronger, right, for the day.
Yeah.
I think even like, a daily deck application might be even better sometimes than thinking of it as like a lifelong thing. Like each day, like how you stack in the deck, or the night before for the day.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it takes you take a couple of rounds to see like, did it work? Like, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Am I building my deck in the right way? And so that's making me think about, so like I'm nearing the end of my 30s, and like maybe what I thought, the deck that I thought I was building up, it doesn't seem to be working anymore. But other things are working, but I'm not paying attention to those, or I can't see how and why they're successful. Some of them are working, but they're like at a less tangible level, right? They're you play one game in your teens, you start playing a different game in your 20s, trying to be a responsible provider, and then you spam that game hard in your 20s to try to, and then you do level up, and it's like, you burn right out into your skill tree in specific areas, but then you hit your 30s and realize I am ill-equipped. I cannot handle being this kind of person, because stuff shifts inside you. If you're a healthy human person, ideally, your psyche deepens, things start broadening and opening, you start paying attention to different things. So it's like, good, you did the thing you're supposed to do in your 20s, which is, can I like last in an economy? Can I provide? Can I take care of myself? Can I fall asleep at night and not be afraid of waking up and stuff like that? Those are major questions. And you spend that time and you're like trying to figure that out, but then you hit your 30s and there's like hopefully you feel safe enough, I guess, to where there can be a deepening. Otherwise, if you're like chronically unstable, unsafe, poorly managed, or bad things happening to you, you don't know how to respond to them, then that game that you're trying to play in your 20s just keeps extending out and out. And there's sort of a lack of growing up that happens. You're still trying to play the same deck. The world continues to change. You can end up being dropped out of the game, not because you want to, but because everybody else recognizes you obviously can't play life. Like you're just not able to show up, or something's not happening and nobody has the time to teach you, and so that's why you need mentors. So I'm just very intrigued at this idea of sometimes you trash the deck, or sometimes you have to make big changes. And the hardest thing is when you invest a ton of time into being where you are to hold, and by the time you figured it out, the game has continued to move. And so that idea of being something that keeps evolving with the game, I think it's a very hard thing to do as a human person. And I think you go and you look at all the wisdom teachers, and they're invariably like, stop holding on to the first deck you were born, or
exactly.
Keep adapting.
Well,
just stop.
Yeah, well, you get the sense like you're like, well, you work so hard to put together, and like if it's not working, like, well, I don't want to change. Like I work so hard, but like sometimes it is best. Like in some games, it's called like a mulligan. You pull it, you draw 7 cards, and if it's not great, sometimes you have to bite the bullet and say, I have to start again. You start with a little less cards, like right. You kind of like you do have to have a bit of a learning curve, but you could start with a better hand if you just give up like that unction. Like, no, these are mine. Like, no, just let them go. Start again. In some ways, again, in the application changes, but like because the tricky part I know I found is like when something does work for so long, but then it stops working, you're so like, what the heck? Like this was working for so long. I don't want to give it up. Like right now, the game's not, it's not fair because the way I was doing it is not working anymore. I mean, like for me, like my day, I'll just use that example because it's so easy. Like my day, like I would wake up, I'd wake up at 5 o'clock. And have 2 hours to myself, right? Like 5 to 7. The kids, when the kids were a little younger, start waking up. Like I'd watch an episode of Downton Abbey. I'd watch a movie. I'd do everything I wanted to, and it was working just fine. And then little by little, like some kids started waking up at 5:30. Some kids started not going to bed right away. Like everything shifts. I'm like, what the heck? Like my day was so perfect. I don't want to change the cards. Like that was so fun, and that was so like, it's like, but like the moment, like, well, I just got to go with the flow. Like I have to adapt. Like it can't. So sometimes it was 6 o'clock. Sometimes I would wake up at 7. Sometimes I would go back to 6. Like being adaptive to the day. Again, that's just one tangible example. It's like it was so much better than just trying to hold on to these cards that worked for so long, but now they don't. And then who knows? Maybe like, when 10 years from now, when the kids are older still, that deck might work again, or that strategy might work. But for now, I like the idea of thinking of like, let's just see what this kind of chunk of time looks like and then make the deck then. And then next month, even next week, whatever, check your deck. See how it goes. Is it good? If things not working, take one thing out. Like if it's a writing routine or a journaling routine. Before, I remember way back when I used to do it in the morning as soon as I woke up. But then I had to switch up. At night was better. And so like, I don't know, these little things, it's like, I like the idea of like thinking of this, again, that deck thought of like, just keep reevaluating the deck. And each time you play, if you lose, see why you lost, and then reevaluate.
I would be so interested if it, maybe just because I'm visual, but to be able to have like an actual deck and then you like, I don't know, you put stat points on where are you in this and this, and then be able to see weak points because I have a hard time accepting that I'm not perfect. Yeah. And that if there's an area that's like down, it's like, well, I just don't want to pay attention to that area. It's like, I suck at math. I'm just not even going to try. Let me go focus on winning at this other stuff over here. Yep. And that's not only a missed opportunity, it's also a personal failing. And then it comes back and always bites you in the ass because you're never looking that way.
No, never. You're like, I don't need to pay attention to that.
Yeah. Journaling. You still journal?
No, not as much as I want to or should. I'll do like little mini journals, but like I used to do literally named it like the farmhouse journals, like, or wherever I'm living, like the apartment journals, or again, it's one of the things I know is so good and beneficial, and I just don't make time for it. And I think I would like to. Do you journal still, or no, go back and forth?
I don't.
Yeah.
I remember one year I had a journaling app and I wrote in it, and then I completely forgot about it for 2 years, and then I came back to that app and I opened it up again. And what I wanted to journal is exactly what I'd said 2 years before. And I told a friend, I'm like, I didn't make any progress in 2 years. Word for word, the same problem.
Back to where I started. Yeah.
So what's the takeaway? Definitely don't journal. I don't need that kind of pressure in my life.
I liked it. I had a lot of different times where I would journal every day. And it's just nice to look back and see my thought patterns. Like I could see it, like, and it wrote it in a certain way, like, oh wow, like I still think that way. And then but one I was like, oh wow, I don't think that way anymore at all. And it was nice to see like there was a growth in that. But for me, it wasn't even like I would like it's almost like write and burn, meaning like I would just write to get the thoughts out of my head, and I never look at it again. Just it's done. And it was just enough to mentally detach from the day and say like, okay, that's what happened. At the end of the day, kind of like draw like a mini conclusion or whatever, what's the life lesson, what's the moral lesson, what's the conclusion of the day, and then be done with it. And then maybe never look at those again. But for that day, it helped decompress and like release that. And I was doing the free write, the like an electric typewriter, which is nice. So like, I don't know, my hand, I get like it cramps. I'm like, which I probably just wrote more. but it's nice to just type it out, that I could just think in my mind as quick as I was typing, and or vice versa. So I don't know. I was trying to bring it back, but it's one of those things like, I don't know, but let's just do it if I want to do it.
Well, as we start to wrap for today, any upcoming movies or anything you're looking forward to seeing?
I will let you know if we get Hulu. I want to see The Bear,
which is amazing.
Yeah, and I don't know. No movies have come up. I mean, I know we've talked about some movies here and there, but nothing. That was the closest one to watching. How about you?
So I'm halfway through The Bear, nice. And I love that series. Let's see what else. I rewatched The Old Guard this past weekend in preparation for the new one. I'm hoping the new one does better. And in rewatching the old one, I realized, okay, it was okay. It felt like I think I liked the idea in retrospect more than I liked the actual movie, which was slow, and it felt a bit low budget concept.
Gotcha.
Or execution of the concept. I think it could have been so much cooler. What else? There was something else, but I forget. I'm looking forward to the new Sandman series dropping. So that'll be on Netflix. And there's a couple others in there, but I don't remember.
I'll have to let you know if I do a early morning movie. I'm going to slot that in. Maybe I'll try that. Well, not this. This week's a bit crazy, but we'll see. That's how I could do like a fun movie. I'll do one of your recs from way back. I'll let you know how it goes.
And have you watched K-pop Demon Hunters?
No, I'm saying that's the one I'll probably do in early morning.
Yeah, you should. That one landed the plane. That was amazing.
Cool. All right. Maybe tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll make the effort and do it tomorrow morning.
Okay. There you go, friends. If you enjoyed that, go ahead and say hi. If you got a movie recommendation, hit us up in the comments. We'd love to know what you have enjoyed watching this past month. And heck, if anything interesting or random just jumped out at you from this conversation, say hi. We'd love to know. And we will... I actually want to give a shout out to one of our fans. I say fans, more of a follower. But apart from Gabby, shows up and he leaves awesome little comments. EJ Toll. It's good to have you following us, friend. Looks like he likes D&D.
Yeah,
like we do too. By
definitely
the way,
shout out to him.
Did you and I talk about this last week? I don't remember. But the idea that old age homes, like when it's retirement homes, like when we get to that age, are going to be so lit with VR games.
Be sweet.
D&D gaming sessions are going to be some of the most incredible. It's like no more bingo and bridge.
No.
It's going to be D&D.
Look forward to that every day. That'd be so sweet.
That's what a time to be alive.